Hey book girlies, I'm Sarah.
Hey gamer bros, it's Ian.
Okay. And you're listening to a pot of sass and sarcasm. What have you been playing?
I've been playing Ultimate Chicken Horse.
Whoa. What is this? Please tell me.
Ultimate Chicken Horse is a platformer type game where the whole mechanics of the game is just to navigate through the level and the obstacles in it. And usually it involves jumping onto objects. And the twist that makes this a party game is that there is no set level.
Mm-hmm.
Each player gets to pick an item that they wish to place inside the course.
Okay. So can you give me an example? Because I don't know if I know what you mean.
Okay, so let's say 4 of us are in the level, we all load in, and we all share the same goal, which is to reach the end of the level, from your start to your end point. And so right away, usually it's impossible to reach the end.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I'll pick a plank of wood to place on the level somewhere.
Mm-hmm. And you don't get to pick where it is?
I get to pick where it is as well. I get to pick what and where I place stuff.
Okay.
And then let's say someone else goes, I can make that jump pretty easily, and I don't want the other players to make the jump.
Wait, so you all have the same goal, but you're working against each other?
Yeah, because if everyone makes it, no points are made. And if nobody makes it, no points are made.
Okay.
So it's somebody has to lose. So I'm trying to set it up where it's too difficult for everyone else, but not too difficult for myself. So like I was saying, maybe I'll place a plank of wood. Someone else might place down a spike trap. And then a third person might place down like a crossbow or something that just shoots across the level. So there's either things that are helpful, traps. Occasionally there's like benefits that you can place on the map. And then there are deletion tools. So say the map is way too difficult and I can't get through because of a specific trap. I can then, on my turn, instead of placing down the plank of wood, I can put down a bomb and destroy what somebody else placed.
Oh.
Yeah.
But then that would help other people as well as yourself, potentially.
It's really annoying playing with my friends.
Why?
Because they try to make it absolutely impossible. I'm like, guys, somebody has to make it.
You know, that does sound like your friends, though.
It's like, why are you doing this? You also need to make it.
They are chaos goblins, your friends, not gonna lie. They just thrive on chaos, and they're just like, we don't care if nobody wins. We just want to make sure that you don't win.
I'm like, you also need to make it, but you need to make it easier because you're not as good as us. So instead, they go the opposite way and make it impossible for everyone. Try to make it so you can get through. So we did a bunch of rounds of that.
What is that game called again?
It's called Ultimate Chicken Horse.
Where does that name come from?
I don't know.
Do you want to know?
Not really, but you can be a chicken. You can be a horse. You can be a raccoon.
Oh.
I unlocked the squirrel.
Oh.
You can be a sheep.
This sounds delightful.
It is pretty silly. So trying to get my friends to buy it, and they're like, I don't know, man. I'm like, it's $5 right now.
And it sounds like it's a lot of fun. You guys seem to be having fun with it anyways.
Yeah, we had a lot of people on last night, so.
That's fun. Well, shall we get into it?
I suppose.
All right. So a quick recap. We are continuing The Nightingale by Kristin Hannah. It takes place in 1940s France, and in early 1940, the Germans invaded France, who surrendered, hoping to prevent unnecessary bloodshed. When Paris was captured, Isabelle Rossignol was sent to Carriveau to live with her sister Vianne in the relative safety that the country provided. However, Isabelle dreamed of being a war hero like Edith Cavell was in World War I, so after her arrival in Carriveau, the Germans came to Carriveau and occupied the territory, and Captain Wolfgang Beck was requisitioned to live at Vianne's home. This was a very uncomfortable time, to say the least, because Isabelle was obviously angry and dangerously rebellious. However, most of the Germans were willing to look the other way in her case because she was a pretty French girl. And she was also very impetuous and seemingly harmless. Isabelle joined the underground Free French movement to encourage French men and women to reject the occupation and basically revolt. She's responsible for delivering tracts that gave the citizens of Caravo the information that the German newspapers omitted. Meanwhile, her sister Vianne seemed pretty paralyzed by her circumstances and tended toward abiding by the rules to avoid any discomfort or trouble. She has a hard time seeing Captain Beck as the enemy, especially when he starts granting her favors, like delivering letters to her husband, who's in a prisoner of war camp. At one point, she gave Beck a list of names of teachers at her school who fell into the Germans' undesirables category, quote unquote, including her best friend Rachel. Weeks later, those teachers were dismissed from their positions, and soon afterward, the members of the Free French asked Isabelle to take on a new role to act as a liaison between the faction in Paris and Caravo for the Free French movement. She and Vianne have a little bit of a fight about this because Vianne assumes that she's going to Paris to meet a boy, and Isabelle can't risk correcting her on that. So she's like, sure, I'm going to Paris to meet a boy. Why not? At the end of this discussion, Vianne accuses Isabelle of abandoning her. I am going to murder you. I should maybe not admit that on a podcast.
Yeah. That's evidence right there.
I've already talked about the murder hole.
Coming for you.
You're not going to silence it.
No, I wasn't gonna. What even? That's not even a message. There's nothing on here.
All right. So she and Vianne have a fight because Vianne assumes that she's going to Paris to meet a boy, and Isabelle can't risk correcting her on that. She's like, yeah, sure. Let's just say I'm going to Paris to meet a boy. Perfect. At the end of the discussion, Vianne accuses Isabelle of abandoning her and Sophie with Captain Beck. She's like, just know that you're abandoning me. You're abandoning Sophie with him, the enemy, in our house. And Isabelle does warn her to stay away from Beck. But Vianne's like, How am I going to do that? He fucking lives here. What do you want from me? We also heard from the old woman again, and we discussed a lot about seeing like who she might be. I am really starting to feel very confident that that old woman is Isabelle, but we'll have to see where that goes. So for right now, I'm going to focus a little bit on Vianne and her story. I'm not totally giving this to you in the same order that it was delivered in the book, because there's a lot that happens in a short amount of time. And to me, it just made more sense to separate their stories and just focus on one of them at a time. So we're going to focus on Vianne first, and then we'll talk a little bit about what happens with Isabelle. So after Isabelle left Caravo, things seemed to calm down and return to like a pseudo-normal type of like routine for Vianne. She kept herself busy, especially now that she didn't have Isabelle to wait in the ration lines for her anymore. The same afternoon that Isabelle left, Captain Beck knocked on the front door of Vianne's home with fresh fish that he had caught. At first, Vianne assumed he wanted her to prepare the fish for him and his colleague who he said caught the fish with him. But he said, no, this is for us, madame. You, me, and Sophie. And Vianne was like, what the fuck? She wanted to refuse because she knew that Isabelle would have refused and her neighbors claimed they would have refused. And they were all already very judgmental of her. So she's like, I should refuse this. But at the same time, she's gone for a long while without good food, as have most of the other French people in her area. So this is also one of those other kind of like strategies of like, she and her daughter are starving, and Beck knows this and is now being like, here's some fish. Everyone claimed that they would never accept food from the enemy, but this war had been going on for almost 2 years at this point, because we're in 1941, and it was getting harder and harder, especially for Vianne, to refuse his offer. Beck reasoned with her and said that since he caught the fish, he had no more claim to the fish than any other Frenchman. Anybody could have caught these fish. I just happened to. So it's not like you're betraying anyone. You're not actually accepting food from the enemy. This isn't enemy food. This is food that you could have got yourself if you wanted. And Vianne couldn't argue with that logic. so she began to prepare the fish. During dinner, Vianne is a little bit put off by Beck because he's sitting in Antoine's chair. I'm just like, the disrespect. But so he's sitting in Antoine's chair, and not only that, but he's being very pleasant, and he's like pretty vocal. He's telling stories to Sophie about like his fishing excursions, and then Sophie's responding back. She's laughing at these stories, and then she's like, yeah, there was this one time that my dad fell in the river and it was so funny, isn't that right, Mom? And Vianne's like, what the fuck is happening? Every time that Beck used to eat with us, it was silent at this table at all times. And Sophie does seem a little bit resistant to Beck because she'd been taking a lot of her cues from Isabelle. But again, she was kind of seeming to forget that Isabelle would have made this whole situation quiet. And Vianne also starts to feel kind of guilty because she's like, I can't remember the last time that I saw Sophie laughing. And this was really nice to see, even if it was from the enemy. So Beck told Vianne that things were different now. And specifically, now that Isabelle is gone, he says, things are different now with your sister gone. And Vianne's like, I don't know what that means. But Beck was like, things didn't really have to be so tense with them anymore. They didn't need to make room to accommodate Isabelle's anger. Vianne had to admit that life at Les Jardins was easier without Isabelle. No more outbursts. No more veiled comments made just within Captain Beck's earshot. No more pushing Vianne to wage useless battles in a war already lost. Still, sometimes, without Isabelle, the house was too quiet, and in the silence, Vianne found herself thinking too loudly. So one day, Vianne and Sophie were waiting in one of those ration queues, and Vianne noticed a new poster that was starting to enforce the further segregation of the city. So first, we talked about how the other communities, quote unquote, the people that the Germans deemed undesirable, quote unquote, like the Jewish population, the communists, Freemasons, homosexuals, they were just identified by German propaganda posters as, you know, like all of these posters were blaming them. That was the first step. Then those people were being removed from public service positions, and then they were being executed for crimes against Germans as decided by the Germans, of course. And now these new propaganda posters are saying that these communities are not allowed to be patrons at certain businesses. So not only are they not allowed to work at these businesses, but they can't be patrons either. The queue shuffled forward. At the display window, Vianne noticed a new propaganda poster that showed a smiling German soldier offering bread to a group of French children. Beside it was a new sign that read, "No Jews allowed." "What does that mean, Maman?" Sophie said, pointing to the sign. "Hush, Sophie," Vianne said sharply. "We've talked about this. Some things are no longer spoken of." She gave Sophie's hand a tug for emphasis. The queue moved forward. Vianne stepped to the front and found herself staring at a gray-haired woman with the skin the color and texture of oatmeal. Vianne frowned. "Where's Madame Fournier?" she asked, offering her ration ticket for today's meat. She hoped there was still some to be had. "No Jews allowed," the woman said. "We have a little smoked pigeon left." "But this is the Fournier shop." "Not anymore. It's mine now. You want the pigeon or not?" Vianne took the small tin of smoked pigeon and dropped it in her willow basket. Saying nothing, she led Sophie outside. On the opposite corner, a German sentry stood guard in front of the bank, reminding the French people that the bank had been seized by the Germans. "Maman," Sophie said, "it's wrong to—" "Hush!" Vianne grabbed Sophie's hand as they walked out of town and along the dirt road home. Sophie made her displeasure known. She huffed and sighed and grumbled. Vianne ignored her. Great parenting, by the way, just ignoring your child. Which, I mean, like, to be, yes, when they are normally throwing a tantrum, I'm like, yes, ignore them. But I'm like, Vianne.
She's like, be quiet. We can't have a scene in the middle of the town square. We might get in trouble.
Exactly. When they reached the broken gate to Les Jardins, Sophie yanked free and spun to face Vianne. "How can they just take the butcher's shop? Tante Isabelle would do something. You're just afraid. And what should I do? Storm into the square and demand for Madame Fournier to get her shop back? And what would they do to me for that? You've seen the posters in town." She lowered her voice. "They're executing French people, Sophie. Executing them. But no buts. These are dangerous times, Sophie."
So is Sophie 10 now?
Sophie is probably 9.
Okay.
8 or 9. Or, yeah, she was like 8 in 1940.
Mm-hmm.
And we're in like May of 1941.
Mm-hmm.
So 9-ish. And so while Vianne is not wrong, she's also not right. It's just kind of this weird like, I don't know what to do, and I don't think Vianne knows what to do, and really nobody knows what to do. But Isabelle is definitely the one who will stand up at all times for what she believes is right. Whereas Vianne is like, I know that this is wrong, what they are doing, but I can't risk standing up for it. Like, I can't risk standing against this.
And also I don't know how, what am I supposed to do? The consequences are way too high.
Right, exactly. The other thing, though, is that Vianne has already shown that she is complicit and willing to comply when the right pressures are applied to her. And this is what the propaganda is for. It's a scare tactic to keep people in line, to not have people question or rebel against it. So that's part of what executing people is for. That's part of having the posters listing people for their executions and what their crimes were. It's part of showing that the Germans are these great people who will share bread with French children and whatever.
And the longer it goes on, the more normalized it becomes.
Right. And the more that people will just kind of start to, I don't want to say believe it, but just like you said, normalize it and say like, yeah, that's just
it's the way it is, and it's the way it's been for a long time.
Right. So anyway, when Vianne and Sophie get home, Captain Beck was inside, and he made a mention that he knows that Vianne has had trouble sleeping since her sister left, and that he hears her moving around in the dark, which I'm like, you are such a creep, Captain Beck. Like, ew. But also, that makes me really, really nervous, because remember that while Isabelle was living with them, she would get up really, really early and sneak out to go deliver her papers. And so if Captain Beck is awake in the middle of the night and can hear Vianne moving around, did he hear Isabelle leaving and doing what she was doing? And did he ever suspect her of doing stuff? Was he like, it makes me nervous. That's a nervous thing to...
I mean, at this point in the book, I don't think you would suspect anything, because that tension in the book has already passed.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's really weird to mention that he's clearly awake in the middle of the night and can hear the fact that Vianne is moving, because she doesn't deny it. She's not like, she's like, oh man, that's such a weird thing that he also is an insomniac kind of thing. And I'm like, Vianne, that is not the point. But she doesn't know the other point. She knows that Isabelle was getting up early, but she always assumed it was to meet a boy. And I'm nervous that this is going to come back at some point to bite Isabelle.
I mean, it's possible if the what did you call them? The reels have stopped being dispersed.
Oh, the tracks.
Oh, the tracks. I get so confused every time you say tracks. The tracks. I'm like, isn't it just a newspaper?
It's TRACT, tracts. But yeah, that's how they're written in the book, is the tracks. Yeah, they're like a little newspaper thing, like a brochure or whatever. Not brochures, but little articles.
Okay. I mean, as long as those are still being dispersed, I don't think anything will happen.
Yeah. I don't know. I just think it's interesting that he is admitting that he can hear what's going on at night too, which I'm like...
Yeah, that is a bit creepy. Like, I know you're awake in the house, and she's like, I don't even like that you're in the house.
Yeah. It's just, it means that he is watching them much closer than I think anybody realized before, because he has, up until a couple of chapters ago, seemed relatively harmless, as far as like, yes, we all were like, he's a Nazi, but like, until he asked Vianne for that list, we were like, this isn't so bad, is it? And like, that's how, or at least that's how Vianne was seeing it, is like, he's not so bad. But then he asks for the list, and then now he's saying, yeah, I am keeping tabs on you and everybody, whatever, in the middle of the night. It's creepy, and I don't like it. So anyways, Beck tells Vianne that he has a letter for her from Antoine, and she's like, oh my God, give it to me now. And he does, and leaves her to read it privately. And in the letter, Antoine says that he loves her and he misses her and Sophie, and he tells her to be strong and to just be there for him when he is finally able to come home. So I have to read it to you, because it makes me sad. Vianne, my beloved, first, do not worry about me. I am safe and fed well enough. I am unhurt. Truly, no bullet holes in me. In the barracks, I've been lucky enough to claim an upper bunk, and it gives me some privacy in a place of too many men. Through a small window, I can see the moon at night and the spires of Nuremberg, but it is the moon that makes me think of you. Our food is enough to sustain us. I have grown used to pellets of flour and small pieces of potato. When I get home, I look forward to your cooking. I dream of it, and you and Sophie all the time. Please, my beloved, don't fret. Just stay strong and be there for me when the time comes for me to leave this cage. You are my sunlight in the dark and the ground beneath my feet. Because of you, I can survive. I hope that you can find strength in me too, V. That because of me, you will find a way to be strong. Hold my daughter tightly tonight and tell her that somewhere far away her papa is thinking of her. And tell her I will return. I love you, Vianne. P.S. The Red Cross is delivering packages. If you could send me my hunting gloves, I would be very happy. The winters here are cold. It breaks my heart. That's such a sad letter. I mean, it's beautiful. And the way that he talks to her, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're a poet, and I love it, and it's just so great. But, oh, that is tragic.
Mm-hmm. Just the I'm thinking of you. They're both kind of trapped.
Yes. In very different ways, but also in very similar ways.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that they really are both trapped. And I do think it's interesting that, I mean, obviously he's going to call it a cage because he is a prisoner. Like, this is, you know, I don't know. I just thought it was very interesting.
Yeah. He's a prisoner of someplace he doesn't want to be. And she's a prisoner in her own house. Mm-hmm. Because if she leaves, it's gone.
Right. So then in mid-June of 1941, Vianne was dismissed from her position as a teacher at the school. This was the one time that she actually tried to stand up for someone else. It was the one time that she was showing a teeny tiny amount of rebellion, and she gets dismissed for it. So it was the second to last day of school, and the Gestapo and the French policeman, Paul What's-His-Face, who had a mean and cowardly streak from the last episode, came into the school to remove another teacher, Monsieur Paretsky, and Vianne witnessed this, and she tried to intervene and was promptly dismissed.
Like, oh, you're trying to stop us? We'll get rid of you too.
In walked two men, a Gestapo in a long black coat, and the French policeman, Paul, who had gained weight since his collaboration with the Nazis. Vianne moved toward them, her hands clasped tightly at her waist. She felt self-conscious in her threadbare dress. She had no stockings on, and that made her feel strangely vulnerable to these men. On either side of the hallway, classroom doors opened and teachers stepped out to see what the officers wanted. They made eye contact with one another, but no one spoke. The Gestapo walked determinedly towards Monsieur Paretsky's classroom at the end of the building. Fat Paul struggled to keep up, huffing along behind him. Moments later, Monsieur Paretsky was dragged out of his classroom by the French policeman. Vianne frowned as they passed her. Old man Paretsky, who had taught her sums a lifetime ago, gave her a terrified look. Paul? Vianne said sharply. What is happening? The policeman stopped. He is accused of something. I did nothing wrong, Paretsky cried, trying to pull free of Paul's grasp. The Gestapo agent noticed the commotion and perked up. He came at Vianne fast, heels clicking on the floor. She felt a shiver of fear at the glint in his eyes. Madame, what is your reason for stopping us? He is a friend of mine. Really, he said, drawing length from the word, making it a question. So you know that he is distributing anti-German propaganda. It's a newspaper, Paretsky said. I'm just telling the French people the truth, Vianne. Tell them. Vianne felt attention turn to her. Your name, the Gestapo demanded, opening a notebook and taking out a pencil. She wet her lips nervously. Vianne Mauriac. He wrote it down. And you work with Monsieur Paretsky, distributing flyers? No, she cried out. He is a teaching colleague, sir. I know nothing about anything else. The Gestapo closed the notebook. Has no one told you that it is best to ask no questions? I didn't mean to, she said, her throat dry. He gave a slow smile. It frightened her, disarmed her, that smile, enough so that it took her a minute to register his next words. You are terminated, madam. Her heart seemed to stop. Excuse me? I speak of your employment as a teacher. You are terminated. Go home, madam, and do not return. These students do not need an example such as you. Just
because, like, the walking up and going, what's going on?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Is just, that's enough. You don't get to work anymore.
Yeah. And so it's like she wasn't necessarily trying to stand up for him necessarily, but at the same time she was like, what is this? Why are you doing this? Mm-hmm. And so that is what got her terminated ultimately, was that she questioned it. And there was something very interesting. I've got to find it, because there was an epigraph very quickly at the start of, I guess, this section of the book. It wasn't this chapter, but let me find it really quick. Hold on. Asking yourself a question, that's how resistance begins. And then ask that very question to someone else. That's a quote from Remco Camper. I think that's how you say it. Which I'm like, that's an apt quote and very true for, especially her situation. So, of course, after her dismissal, Vianne immediately starts to worry about money because she did have a little bit of money that Antoine had given her before he left, and there was some that she had saved up. And then she was otherwise entirely dependent on her teaching salary, and all of her money basically was gone by this point. Like, she didn't have anything. She was living paycheck to paycheck with her teaching salary, and now she is not a teacher anymore. She's been dismissed. So she's worried about, she already was struggling to get the little provisions that she could, and now that all of that's out of the question. And so she's feeling very helpless because she's like, what do I do? Like, I need to not only take care of myself, but I need to take care of Sophie. And then I have Captain Beck who's in the house all the time. And what is going to happen? And she can't even write a letter to her husband about it because he is a prisoner of war. So first of all, like, what would he even do about it if she did tell him, like, hey, by the way, I lost my job today. Can you send me some? No, he's also like SOL at this moment. And he's got bigger things to worry about. So, like, she's like, what do I do? So she did start writing a letter to him because she just didn't know what else to do. But then she's like, okay, I got to get rid of it. I can't actually write a letter to him because that's insane. And she's like, where can I dispose of it? Because I don't want Sophie to find it. I also don't want Captain Beck to find it because that would be bad.
Burn in your fireplace.
Well, she tried, but then she was like, well, so here's what she did instead. What kind of woman was she to even think of sending a letter like this to her prisoner of war husband? She balled up the postcard and threw it into the cold, soot-caked fireplace, where it lay all alone, a white ball on a bed of gray ash. No, it couldn't be in the house. What if Sophie found it? Read it. She retrieved it from the ashes and carried it out to the backyard, where she threw it into the pergola. The chickens would trample it and peck it to death. Outside, she sat in Antoine's favorite chair, feeling dazed by the suddenness of her changed circumstances and this new and terrible fear. If only she could do it all over again. She'd spend even less money. She'd go without more. She'd let them take Monsieur Paretsky without a word. Behind her, the door creaked open and clicked shut. Footsteps. Breathing. She should get up and leave, but she was too tired to move. Beck came up behind her. Would you care for a glass of wine? It's a Chateau Margaux, 28, a very good year apparently. Wine. She wanted to say yes, please. Perhaps she'd never needed a glass more, but she couldn't do it. Neither could she say no, so she said nothing. She heard that thunk of a cork being freed, and then the gurgle of wine being poured. He set a full glass on the table beside her. The sweet, rich scent was intoxicating. He poured himself a glass and sat down in the chair beside her. I am leaving, he said after a long silence. She turned to him. Do not look so eager. It is only for a while, a few weeks. I have not been home in 2 years. He took a drink. My wife may be sitting in her garden right now, wondering who will return to her. I am not the man who left, alas. I have seen things. He paused. This war, it is not as I expected, and things change in an absence this long. Do you not agree? Oui, she said. She had often thought the same thing. In the silence between them, she heard a frog croak and the leaves fluttering in a jasmine-scented breeze above their heads. A nightingale sang a sad, lonely song. You do not seem yourself, madame, he said, if you do not mind me saying so. I was fired from my teaching position today. It was the first time she'd said the words aloud, and they caused hot tears to glaze her eyes. I drew attention to myself. A dangerous thing to do. The money my husband left is gone. I am unemployed, and winter will be upon us soon. How am I to survive? To feed Sophie and keep her warm? She turned to look at him. Their gazes came together. She wanted to look away, but couldn't. He placed the wine glass in her hand, forced her fingers to coil around it. His touch felt hot against her cold hands, made her shiver. She remembered his office suddenly, and all that food stacked within it. It is just wine, he said again, and the scent of it, of black cherries and dark rich earth, and a hint of lavender wafted up to her nose, reminding her of the life she'd had before, the nights she and Antoine had sat out here drinking wine. She took a sip and gasped. She'd forgotten this simple pleasure. You are beautiful, madame, he said, his voice as sweet and rich as the wine. Perhaps it has been too long since you heard that. Vianne got to her feet so fast she knocked into the table and spilled the wine. You should not say such things, Herr Captain. No, he said, rising to his feet. He stood in front of her, his breath scented by wine and spearmint gum. I should not. Please, she said, unable to even finish the sentence. Your daughter will not starve this winter, madam, he said, softly, as if it were their secret accord. That is one thing you can be sure of. God help Vianne, it relieved her. She mumbled something and went back into the house, where she climbed into bed with Sophie, but it was a long time before she slept.
I didn't like that at all.
I hated it. For so many reasons. First and foremost, though, I have to say that Bree, you were wrong. Like, Bree was so wrong when she told me that there is not some weird flirtation between Vianne and Beck. That was weird. That was flirty and inappropriate and just... it was... I don't know. They at least seem to be taken with each other and they know that it's wrong. And so nothing's going to come out of it. But like, they are both married. They are both missing their spouses. And they both find each other attractive. And they are in this really weird and uncomfortable circumstance. And I don't like it. And it's just, ooh, it makes me so uncomfortable. And it makes me so angry whenever something happens between the two of them. But then on top of it, there's the fact that she drank the wine, and gave into that and gave into his kindness and everything like that. And obviously, yes, she's in a terrible predicament. But again, it's him manipulating her and showing that he has control over her, and he does. And I am afraid that he is going to hold even more power over her by saying, because he's like, yeah, your daughter's not going to starve this winter, I'll make sure of it, basically. And I'm like, she doesn't need any more favors from you, Beck. She really doesn't, because your favors come at way too high of a cost.
Yeah, it's like, what is he gonna ask for next?
Yeah, so it's...
Yeah, it definitely seems like a sexual advance.
Yeah, that's definitely what that was going to be, of him being like, you're beautiful. Maybe people haven't said that in a while to you. And she's like, excuse me, I don't need to hear that from you. But just... and the fact that he's like, I've seen things in this war. This isn't what I was expecting. Yeah. And...
yeah, I wasn't expecting him to make a move on her right before he left to go back to see his own wife.
Right, yeah. That was... ugh.
Or... At first, I was like, is he trying to insinuate that she should be like a pleasure girl?
That's what I was wondering, too, of like, you're beautiful. Maybe you could do that. But then when she's like, you shouldn't say such stuff. And he's like, yeah, I really shouldn't. And I'm like, what is this? It was...
yeah, I was like, what is happening here?
Yeah, and even if he is insinuating that, that's rude and fucked up.
Is all the other stuff involved with the... I'll make sure your daughter doesn't go hungry part. He should already be doing that as someone staying in their house to try to show that he's a good person. But he shouldn't, but now it seems like he's saying, only if you do what I ask.
Yeah, and I think part of it is that he wanted to make sure, he was trying to do stuff, because the first night that he was there, he tried to offer them wine and they were like, no. And then he's tried to offer them food and stuff like that. And every time they're like, no, we will not take food from the enemy. That's just, and Isabelle was always very firm in that. And this is obviously weeks after Isabelle's left. This is in June. Isabelle left in April, May-ish of 1941. So it's been a month. And a month has passed and he's like, things are different now. And he's been nice to them. But it's Vianne is trying to still follow Isabelle's lead by not accepting his gifts and everything like that, or his favors, because the last time she did that, she really messed up. So I don't know. I think that this is more than just two enemies underneath the same roof trying to find a sense of normalcy. There is something weird between these two.
Yeah, there's an agenda from one.
Yes, and kind of a willingness to comply from the other.
Yeah, which we got from her self-reflection of, I would eat less, I would say nothing.
Yeah, that part bothered me so much, about how she's like, I would let them take him without saying a word. I'm like, oh my God, you're the problem, Vianne. This is the problem that happened in the whole war, was people complied to save themselves. I don't necessarily blame anybody for making that kind of decision, because I can't imagine having to be put in that position. But at the same time, it is really, really hard to read and to grapple with that fact that so many good people were complicit. So technically now we're going back to late April, early May of 1941 because, again, I've separated Isabelle and Vianne. So I'm sorry, Kristin Hannah, for ruining your chronology because she obviously put these in this particular order. I'm sure to build some suspense and everything like that.
I feel it's probably to show the struggles that the girls are having in parallel.
Right. That's true too. I know that she was very purposeful with doing it the way that she did. I, though, just felt like what happens with Isabelle is so important. Not that Vianne's going through isn't important, but like I really just want to take some time to focus on Isabelle and just go through her story for a little while. So again, she's been asked to go to Paris to be basically a letterbox for the Free French. She procured an allspice from Beck, claiming that she was going to tend to her ill father. And the entire time that she was in Carriveau, basically, she'd been dreaming of returning to Paris. It had been months of her wanting to go back to Paris. And in her dreams, Paris was Paris. It was unaffected by the war. She had this really kind of naive hope that Paris was sheltered or separated from the war. It was not occupied by German soldiers. And even though she had seen the invasion, she knew that that wasn't true. She was still slightly surprised to see the Nazi flag flying from the Eiffel Tower and from everywhere. Yes.
Yeah, it's fully occupied and they wanted you to know.
Oh, there was no doubt about it. As soon as she stepped off the train, she's like, oh God. So she went straight to her father's bookshop and found that it was closed. The bookshop's display windows were blacked out, and the grates that protected the glass during the day were drawn down and locked in place. She tried the door and found it locked. She went to the crevice in the store facade that had always been her father's hiding place and found the rusted skeleton key and let herself in. The narrow store seemed to hold its breath in the darkness. Not a sound came at her. Not her father turning the pages of a beloved novel, or the sound of his pen scratching on paper as he struggled with the poetry that had been his passion when Maman was alive. She closed the door behind her and flicked on the light switch by the door. Nothing. She felt her way to the desk and found a candle in an old brass holder. An extended search of the drawers revealed matches, and she lit the candle. The light, meager as it was, revealed the destruction in every corner of the shop. Half of the shelves were empty, many of them broken and hanging on slants. The books, a fallen pyramid on the floor beneath the low end. Posters had been ripped down and defaced. It was as if marauders had gone through on a rampage looking for something hidden and carelessly destroyed everything along the way. Isabelle left the bookshop quickly, not even bothering to replace the key. Instead, she dropped it in her pocket and unlocked the bicycle and climbed aboard. She kept to the smaller streets, the few that weren't barricaded, until she came to Rue de Grenelle. There, she turned and pedaled for home. She stared up at the blacked-out windows as she fished the key from her bag. Opening the door, she pushed her way into the shadowy lobby, hauling her bicycle with her. She locked it to a pipe in the lobby. Ignoring the coffin-sized cage elevator, which no doubt didn't run these days of limited electricity, she climbed the narrow, steeply pitched stairs that coiled around the elevator shaft and came to the 5th-floor landing where there were 2 doors, one on the left side of the building and theirs on the right. She unlocked the door and stepped inside. Behind her, she thought she heard the neighbor's door open. When she turned back to say hello to Madame Leclerc, the door clicked quietly shut. Apparently, the nosy old woman was watching the comings and goings in apartment 6B. Even though it was midday, the blacked-out windows made it dark inside. Papa? There was no answer. Truthfully, she was relieved. She carried her valise into the salon. Darkness reminded her of another time, long ago. The apartment had been shadowy and musty. She turned on the light switch in the living room. An ornate blown glass chandelier flickered to life, its sculpted glass branches glittering as if from another world. In the meager light, she looked around the apartment, noticing several pieces of art were missing from the walls. Isabelle turned off the light. There was no reason to waste precious electricity while she waited. She sat down at the round wooden table beneath the chandelier, its rough surface scarred by 1,000 suppers over the years. Her hand ran lovingly over the banged-up wood. She wasn't sure how long she'd sat here in the dark, remembering the circumstances of her mother, because she had all but forgotten her face in any real way. She heard footsteps, and then a key rattling in the lock. She heard the door open and rose to her feet. The door clicked shut. She heard him shuffling through the entry past the small kitchen. She needed to be strong now, determined, but the courage that was as much a part of her as her green eyes had always faded in her father's presence, and it retreated now. "Papa?" she said into the darkness. She knew he hated surprises. She heard him go still. Then a light switch clicked and the chandelier came on. "Isabelle," he said with a sigh. "What are you doing here?" She knew better than to reveal uncertainty to this man who cared so little for her feelings. She had a job to do now. "I've come to live with you in Paris." Again, she added as an afterthought. "You left Vianne and Sophie alone with a Nazi?" "They are safer with me gone, believe me. Sooner or later I would have lost my temper." "Lost your temper? What is wrong with you? You will return to Carriveau tomorrow morning." He walked past her to the wooden sideboard that was tucked against the papered wall. He poured himself a glass of brandy, drank it down in 3 large gulps, and poured another. When he finished the second drink, he turned to her.
Oh, wow. He's like, my daughter's here. I can't handle this. I'm just going to drink like 6 shots right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
And I'm at the same time, I'm like, she can't go. She doesn't have another pass.
True. When he finished the second drink, he turned to her. "No," she said. The single word galvanized her. Had she ever said it to him before? "Pardon?" "I said no, Papa. I will not bend to your will this time. I will not leave. This is my home. My home. You will not turn me away, Papa. You have done that too many times. You are my father. This is my home. We are at war. I am staying." She bent down for the valise at her feet and picked it up. In the pale glow of the chandelier, she saw defeat deepen the lines in her father's cheeks. His shoulders slumped. He poured himself another brandy, gulped it greedily.
Oh my gosh. He's shit-faced now. There's 3 glasses.
He poured himself another brandy, gulped it greedily. Obviously, he could barely stand to look at her without the aid of alcohol. "There are no parties to attend," he said, "and all your university boys are gone." "This is really what you think of me?" she said. Then she changed the subject. "I stopped by the bookshop." "The Nazis," he said in response. "They stormed in one day and pulled out everything by Freud, Mann, Trotsky, Tolstoy, Moroy, all of them. They burned. And the music too. I would rather lock the doors than sell only what I am allowed to. So I did just that." "How are you making a living? How are you paying for electricity and food?" Something changed in his face. "I've got a good job at the Hotel de Crillon." "In service?" She could hardly credit him serving beer to German brutes. He glanced away. Isabelle got a sick feeling in her stomach. "For whom do you work, Papa?" "The German High Command in Paris," he said.
I was about to go, ooh. So I'll do it anyway. Ooh. She has a line on more information.
That's not how she sees it.
Yeah, I know that's not how she sees it right now.
Isabelle recognized that feeling now. It was shame. After what they did to you in the Great War, Isabelle. I remember the stories Maman used to tell us about how you'd been before the war and how it had broken you. I used to dream that someday you would remember that you were a father, but all of that was a lie, wasn't it? You are just a coward. The minute the Nazis returned, you raced to aid them. How dare you judge me and what I've been through? Tell me, Papa, do you get your conquerors coffee or hail them taxis on their way to Maxime's? Do you eat their lunch leftovers? He seemed to deflate before her eyes. She felt unaccountably regretful for her sharp words, even though they were true and deserved. But she couldn't back down now. "So we are agreed. I will move into my old room and live here. We barely need to speak if that's your condition. There's no food here in the city, Isabelle. Not for us Parisians, anyway. All over town there are signs warning us not to eat rats, and these signs are necessary. People are raising guinea pigs for food. You'll be more comfortable in the country where there are gardens. I am not looking for comfort or safety." "What are you looking for in Paris, then?" She realized her mistake. She'd set a trap with her foolish words and stepped right into it. Her father was many things. Stupid was not one of them. "I'm here to meet a friend." "Tell me we are not talking about some boy. Tell me you are smarter than that. The country was dull, Papa. You know me."
She's like, I'm playing it.
He sighed, poured another drink from the bottle.
Just don't even pour a drink. Just have the bottle. You've already had half of it by this point.
She saw the telltale glaze come into his eyes. Soon, she knew, he would stumble away to be alone with whatever it was he thought about. "If you stay, there will be rules. You will be home by curfew. Always and without exception. You will leave me my privacy. I can't stomach being hovered over. You will go to the shops each morning and see what our ration cards will get us. And you will find a job." He paused, looked at her, his eyes narrowed. "And if you get yourself in trouble like your sister did, I will throw you out. Period." He was still talking when she turned on her heel and walked away. She went into her old bedroom and shut the door. she had done it.
I'm wondering if she's going to open the bookstore back up.
Interesting.
Because that'd be perfect.
Yeah, it would be. For a lot of reasons. I really think that this conversation between her and her father it's interesting, especially knowing where I am in the book. There's certain things that I didn't notice the first time that I read through this.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh,
that's
interesting.
I just heard him say, you're not going to get into trouble like your sister.
Yes.
What trouble did she get into?
She got pregnant. And that's why she and Antoine got married. Because he kicked her out and gave her the house in Les Jardins. I can't say that name. I'm so sorry. But that they've talked about it a lot in the book so far. I've just kind of cut it out of the conversations because it didn't seem terribly important. But I thought it was helpful here because she keeps acting like she's here to see a boy. So it made sense for him to be like, if you get yourself pregnant, you're kicked out. Because I'm not dealing with that.
Interesting.
Because he didn't deal with it with Vianne either. He kicked her out too. So
like, I'm kicking you out. Here's a house.
Yeah, except for I guess he's not going to kick Isabelle out and give her a house.
More like here's a family estate.
Yeah. Isabelle has her foot in the door for her mission in the Free French underground movement.
Yeah, she's got a fire under her now. That's great.
Mm-hmm. And now she doesn't have to walk on eggshells because she doesn't live with a Nazi, but she does live in a very different place. The city is very different from the country, and clearly the person who's across the hall is very nosy and maybe like a collaborator with the Germans. We don't know. And who knows about her dad because he's working for the German high command. That's kind of spooky.
I think he's working for the hotel, but that's just where all the high command are.
No, he said that he's working for the high command because she's like, who do you work for at the hotel? And he's like, the German high command.
Mm-hmm.
So the next morning, after her arrival at her dad's apartment, he bangs on her door and says that he's leaving for work, and he tells her to get up, go to the ration lines, and go look for a job. He's like, I'm leaving. Get out of bed. We had an agreement. Bye. Isabelle does get up and she gets ready for her day, but today was not about waiting in ration lines, and it wasn't for finding a job. Today was the day that she was going to meet her contact for the Free French. She dressed in the most unassuming outfit ever, checks her handbag to make sure that the envelope with a letter from Henri isn't visible from underneath the lining, and she sets off to her meeting spot in town. One thing that I kind of love about this section of the book is that because she's doing a lot of like spy type stuff and what's the word I'm looking for? Espionage. They do describe what she's wearing a lot, which I'm like, oh, I love it. It's just like the height of fashion. I'm like, this is great. But anyways, so she spotted the iron bench near the Louvre where the drop was to be made, and she watched as a woman approached the bench. And she hadn't expected her contact to be a woman, especially because Henri said that he was working with a man. He was like, there's a man in Paris that I need you to basically make contact with. And she's like, oh, okay, this is a woman. Interesting. But then again, she does know that the Free French is a network of people, so she shouldn't have been surprised that there's another woman working with them. So she goes to the bench and sits near the woman and says her code line. The code line that the Free French have decided on is, do you think I'll need an umbrella today? And the woman acknowledges the code and asks Isabelle to follow her. And so she brings Isabelle to a cafe where they sit and chat like two girls who are out to lunch. And Isabelle discreetly hands the woman the envelope, and the woman tells her to continue to be vigilant and to trust no one. This woman mentioned that there are French collaborators working with the Germans, selling out fellow French people to the Gestapo, etc., all of that kind of stuff. And just as she's kind of telling Isabelle all of this, there are two German soldiers who enter the cafe. And so then the woman gets up and leaves and tells Isabelle where to meet her next. And just like that, the woman is gone and Isabelle is left alone. She feels like the two German soldiers who grabbed a table nearby are watching her, so she tries to act casual and natural. She orders a coffee, forces herself to finish it, and she feels like she does that perfectly. And so she gets up to leave, and one of the German soldiers tries to engage her in conversation, but she does kind of a dumb blonde routine because she like stumbled into him and he's like, are you all right? She's like, oh my God, yeah, I'm fine. And then she gets on her bicycle and rides away. And I'm like, ooh, I love it.
I love that too.
Exactly a week after her arrival in Paris, Isabelle was to meet the others who shared her passion for a free France, and she was nervous as she walked among the sallow-faced Parisians and well-fed Germans toward the unknown destination. She had dressed carefully this morning, in a fitted blue rayon dress with a black belt. She'd set her hair last night and combed it out into precise waves this morning, pinning it back from her face. She wore no makeup. I am an actress, and this is a role, she thought as she walked down the street. I'm a schoolgirl in love, sneaking out to meet a boy. That was the story she'd decided on and dressed for. She was sure that, if questioned, she could make a German believe her. Behind her, traffic moved slowly up the boulevard, horns honking, motors grumbling, horse hooves clomping, bicycle bells ringing. Even with all of that noise, this once lively street felt stripped of its life and color. A police wagon pulled up alongside her, and an officer stepped out of the vehicle, his cloak folded over his shoulders. He was carrying a white stick. Do you think I'll need an umbrella today? Isabelle jumped, made a little sound. She'd been so focused on the policeman that she'd forgotten her mission. I expect it to remain sunny, she said. The man clutched her arm and led her down the suddenly empty street. It was funny how the police wagon could make Parisians disappear. No one stuck around for an arrest, neither to witness it nor to help. Isabelle tried to see the man beside her, but they were moving too fast. She glimpsed his boots, slashing quickly across the sidewalk beneath them. Old leather, torn laces, a hole emerging from scuff marks at the left toe. Close your eyes, he said as they crossed the street. Why? Do it. She was not one to follow orders blindly, but she wanted so badly to be a part of this that she did as she was instructed. She closed her eyes and stumbled along beside him, almost tripping over her own feet more than once. At last they came to a stop. She heard him knock 4 times on a door. Then there were footsteps, and she heard a whoosh of a door opening, and the acrid smell of cigarette smoke wafted across her face. It occurred to her now, just this instant, that she could be in danger. The man pulled her inside, and the door slammed shut behind them. Isabelle opened her eyes, even though she had not been told to do so. Best that she show her mettle now. The room didn't come into focus instantly. It was dark, the air thick with cigarette smoke. All of the windows were blacked out. The only light came from 2 oil lamps, sputtering valiantly against the shadows and smoke. 3 men sat at a wooden table that bore an overflowing ashtray. 2 were young, wearing patched coats and ragged pants. Between them sat a pencil-thin old man with a wax-gray mustache, whom she recognized. Standing at the back of the wall was the woman who had been Isabelle's contact. She was dressed in all black, like a widow, and was smoking a cigarette. Monsieur Levy? Isabelle asked the older man. Is that you? He pulled the tattered beret from his shiny bald head and held it clasped in his hands. Isabelle Rossignol. You know this woman? One of the men asked. I was a regular patron of her father's bookshop, Levy said. Last I heard, she was impulsive, undisciplined, and charming. How many schools expelled you, Isabelle? 1 too many, my father would say. But what good is knowing where to seat an ambassador's second son at a dinner party these days, Isabelle said. I am still charming.
Yeah, you tell him.
And still outspoken. A rash head and thoughtless words could get everyone in this room killed, he said carefully. Isabelle understood her mistake instantly. She nodded. Monsieur Levy sat back in his chair and studied her. A friend recommends you highly. He tells us you have been distributing our tracts for months. And Anouk says you were quite steady yesterday. Isabelle glanced at the woman, Anouk, who nodded in response. I will do anything to help our cause, Isabelle said. Her chest felt tight with anticipation. It had never occurred to her that she could come all this way and be denied entrance to this network of people whose cause was her own. At last, Monsieur Levy said, You will need false papers, a new identity. We will get that for you, but it will take some time. Isabelle drew in a sharp breath. She had been accepted. A sense of destiny seemed to fill the room. She would do something that mattered now. For now, the Nazis are so arrogant they do not believe that any kind of resistance can succeed against them, Levy continued. But they will see, and then the danger to all of us will increase. You must tell no one of your association with us. No one. And that includes your family. It is for their safety and for your own. It would be easy for Isabelle to hide her activities. No one cared particularly where she went or what she did. So they gave Isabelle her next assignment to deliver a package to some vague location by 4 p.m. the following day. In the middle of them giving her this assignment, someone knocks on the door 4 times, and another member of the Free French movement comes in with a British airman in tow. Everyone knew the penalty for helping British airmen was imprisonment at best and death at worst. The airmen looked scared and confused. The Free French group was deciding on how to help him, discussing a change of clothes, a new identity for him, and all of that stuff. But of course, this conversation was happening in French, and the airmen only knew English. And Isabelle saw this and saw how he was confused, and so she decided to translate for him. "They are going to get you some clothes," Isabelle said. The room fell silent. She felt everyone looking at her. "You speak English?" Anouk said, quietly.
So she's like, I didn't go to all those schools for nothing.
Oh my God, Ian, that's literally the next line. I'm not even kidding. "You speak English?" Anouk said quietly. "Passably. 2 years in a Swiss finishing school." Another silence fell. Oh my God, Ian. "Passably. 2 years in a Swish, swash, applesauce. 2 years in a Swiss finishing school." Another silence fell. Then Levy said, "Tell the pilot we will put him in hiding until we can find a way out of France for him. Tell him we are on his side and he is safe, relatively, and he is to do as he is told." Isabelle went to the airman. As she neared him, she saw the scratches on his face and the way something had torn the sleeve of his flight suit. She was pretty sure dry blood darkened his hairline. "Not all of us are passive," she said to the young man. "You speak English," he said. "Thank God. My airplane crashed 4 days ago. I've been crouching in dark corners ever since. I didn't know where to go till this man grabbed me and dragged me here. You will help me?" She nodded. "How? Can you get me back home?" "I don't have the answers. Just do as they tell you. And, monsieur, they are risking their lives to help you. You understand that?" He nodded. Isabelle turned to face her new colleagues. "He understands and will do as you ask." "Merci, Isabelle," Levy said. "Where do we contact you after you return?" The moment she heard the question, Isabelle had an answer that surprised her. "The bookshop," she said firmly. "I'm going to reopen it." So, another prediction of yours coming true. My God.
Well, it's just such a good location. And that's what she's wanted to do that since the beginning of the book as well.
What do you mean? Wanted to work in the bookshop?
Yeah, she wanted to take over her father's bookshop.
Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, she worked with him when she was in Paris the first time, but I don't think it was necessarily like her desire to be there.
I got the impression that she wanted it.
Well, we'll see. Levy gave her a look. "What will your father say about that? I thought he closed it when the Nazis told him what to sell." "My father works for the Nazis," she said bitterly. "His opinions don't account for much. He asked me to get a job. This will be my job. I will be accessible to all of you at any time. It's the perfect solution." "It is," Levy said, although it sounded as if he didn't agree. "Very well then. Anouk will bring you new papers as soon as we can get your new identity card made. We will need a photograph of you." His gaze narrowed. "And Isabelle, allow me to be an old man for a moment and to remind a young girl who is used to being impulsive that there can be none of that anymore. You know I am friends with your father, or I was until he showed his true colors. And I have heard stories about you for years. It is time for you to grow up and do as you are told. Always, without exception. It is for your safety as much as ours." It embarrassed Isabelle that he felt the need to say this to her, and in front of everyone. "Of course. And if you get caught," Anouk said, "it will be as a woman. You understand? They have special unpleasantries for us." Isabelle swallowed hard. She had thought briefly of imprisonment and executions. This was something she had never even considered. Of course, she should have. What we all demand of each other, or hope for at any rate, is 2 days. If you are captured and questioned, try to say nothing for 2 days. That gives us time to disappear. 2 days, Isabelle said. That's not so long. You are so young, Anouk said, frowning. So, Isabelle now goes home with the gumption to tell her father that she is going to reopen the bookshop. Mm-hmm. And, of course, he objects, but he can't exactly find a proper argument against it. So she spends the next several days delivering packages for the Free French and cleaning up the bookshop. And eventually her father concedes and says, fine, do what you want, open the bookshop. But he insists that she leave the storeroom in the back alone. Like, she doesn't touch it. That's his space. He doesn't want her going anywhere near that. He's like, I'm going to keep it locked. I'll keep the key with me. But, you don't get to go there. And she's like, why? Are you bringing women there or something? And he's like, it's none of your business. And he basically says, you are a foolish girl. Thank God your maman did not live to see who you have become.
Oh my goodness.
And
it's one of those, like, if only you knew.
Yeah. Isabelle hated how deeply that hurt her. Or you, papa, she said. Or you. So technically that's not where I'm at in the book, but I feel like this is a good stopping point for this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I already know more, but I feel like you should know more.
Yeah.
But we'll
I'm
have to wait for
excited.
next week.
I'm excited for this part of the book.
Yes, this is getting really exciting. I am almost halfway. You are probably, I don't know, not quite. You're not as far as I am.
Mm-hmm.
But there's more to tell and more interesting things that are coming. So, what did we learn today?
Don't let weirdos come on to you in your own house.
True. Good advice. I learned that your friends have a very bold strategy of winning games, which is to not win, but not let anybody else win either. It's like when you play Catan and you just hoard the sheep. You can't win, but nobody else can either.
Yeah. Play Kingmaker.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. We genuinely hope that you keep listening.
Mm-hmm.
And we hope you stay sassy.
Later. Oh, we didn't shout out anything.
Oh, shit.
Bad podcasters.
Right here. Yep. Worst ones. Where can people find us, Ian?
They can find us on Instagram.
At A Pot of Sass.
They can check out our Facebook page.
Yeah, we have a Facebook page now. I don't know how you find. I think you just search for A Pot of Sass and Sarcasm. I don't know how Facebook works. I'm sorry.
You can send us an email.
At apotofsass@gmail.com.
You can check out our Patreon.
Patreon.com/A Pot of Sass and Sarcasm. We've got lots of goodies for you. Now we hope you keep listening.
Now. Hope you guys keep listening.
We hope you stay sassy.
Later.
It's scaring me right now because it's saying updating, and I'm like, please don't update. We don't do updates here. Oh no, Google, why? Google, why you do this to me? Haha. And then we're just gonna make that really big. Yes. Okay, so
Are you done setting up?
I just thought back to just the noise that I made, and I'm like, this.
Google yes.
Google yes. Okay, Sarah, get serious. This is a serious story. Whew.